Hello and welcome to WJTS in.form. You know, a school in session, and it makes you think of things that are going on in school that you're concerned about with your kids, not through the school system, but just with their buddies and things that they do. We're going to find out ways to protect your kids in this edition of WJTS in.form, as we have with us Joan Knies with Crisis Connection. Joanne, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
It is always a pleasure having you here because there's things that we learn and things that we can keep up to date with technology, because things change so much since last year's school year that we were talking about some issues, that now we're going to talk about some new ones. But let's talk about some of the things. First of all, let's do the basic non-technical sort of issues that you may want to be concerned about. And that would be safety with your kids going to school, after school, things like that.
Right. And you know, you might not think of Crisis Connection and to and from school and staying home alone as similar issues, but it absolutely is, because it's not so much that kids are abused by strangers necessarily, but by people they know sometimes. So we have to be very cognizant on making sure kids know some safety tips, who to go to if they need help, some safety planning like phone numbers, making sure they not just in a speed dial on their cell phone, because if their cell phone goes dead, you know, so do we have those numbers written down someplace? Do they know their route to and from school if they have to walk? Is there a buddy that can meet them? Is there a buddy that's going with them? Just very basic things, making sure that they know who to contact should they be in trouble, no matter if they're in kindergarten or a senior in high school. Just going to and home, you know, from school and home to school, and if they're home alone, what to do. So the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has some very good information, and we have copies of that at our office at Crisis Connection. So one is actually called Know the Rules, After School Safety for Children Who Are Home Alone, and one is Know the Rules for Going to and from School More Safely. We'd be happy to give copies of this to anybody, or if your organization or group would like a presentation, we'd be happy to talk about that. We have an office here in Jasper. It's on Meridian Road, so you can swing by there anytime or give us a call. The local number is 482-1555, or our hotline is a 24-hour hotline. It's 1-800-245-4580.
What are some of the more important things you think that kids ought to, that they may not, something you don't think of?
One thing is know your phone number, especially for little kids, including the area code. Because many times kids don't know their area codes, and especially with cell phones, the area codes are different. Right. So to teach them their, you know, their number, cell phone numbers, and that type of thing. And you know, we live in a great community, and we like to think that everything is safe. So we have a very trusting attitude, which I love. It's one of the reasons I live here. But at the same token, there's a book called by Gavin DeBecker called The Gift of Fear. And if their gut tells them there's something wrong, they need to listen to that gut feel. Okay, he's got a second book called Protecting the Gift, again by Gavin DeBecker. If your surroundings don't look right, if it's not okay, you don't feel like you should go into the house, a neighbor asks you, hey, come in, I'll give you milk and cookies. Maybe that neighbor can't be so trusted. So you need to teach them, they need to ask first so somebody knows where they're at. If they go to a friend's house, they need to check in when they say they're coming back home, you know, so that somebody's watching for them and knows their whereabouts all the time.
It always is hard for me to determine at what age should somebody be left. Is it okay to leave kids at home alone? Is there a set guideline for that? Because it's the same as what age is right to babysit.
Right. You know, I can't answer that honestly.
Okay.
I think it would the parents or, you know, the guardians would know the maturity level of their child. Okay. You know, I think to say just a flat age would be tough to do. I know Memorial Hospital offers safe sitter classes. I'm sure they could give you guidelines. I think Girl Scouts and 4-H also has some things on child care and that type of thing. Every child is different. The community that you can surround them with, it would be different too. I mean, if you have neighbors or relatives that are right there and they have immediate access to help, that might be different than if you live out like me in the middle of a cornfield with access to no one. That would be very different. And transportation, depending if they take a bus or if somebody picks them up or if they go to a daycare facility, I think all that would play into that.
Okay, now something that has changed since last year when the start of a school year is, and technology is always changing. There are now different ways that kids can send pictures back and forth to each other, and they're meant to be good things, but unfortunately, every now and then they are abused. And if you could talk about those.
Right. When we think of technology safety, I think many times we think of the internet and the computer and that type of thing. And I think sometimes we forget that our cell phone is a computer. And so technology safety has to be very much in the forefront when you think about cell phone use, and use your privacy settings and all those type of things. And kids, well, for that matter, adults don't always think about that. And one of the newest software that's out is called Snapchat, which inherently doesn't seem like a bad thing. You simply take a picture and you can send it to somebody and display it for 3, 5, or 10 seconds. And the theory is the person sees that picture for like 5 seconds, it goes away, never to be seen again. But you can get a screen image of that to use whatever way. So unfortunately, many times this comes into play with sexting. So they take a picture of a body part, you know, naked, that type of thing, to their boyfriend, girlfriend, thinking only they will see it. It ends up going viral. Horrible consequences. So we actually have some parent guides. We have some emails. We have some parent guides on top 5 questions parents have about Snapchat and what to do and that type of thing. And then there's another one called Instagram. Same kind of thing. You can take pictures. Now these, Instagram, the picture can stay live longer, and you can actually make collages and different things. Again, inherently doesn't seem like a problem. We were talking about many kids take selfies where they hold up the camera and take the picture. Innocent enough. But let's say they're underage drinking, or let's say it can be tracked on their GPS because they haven't turned off the GPS monitoring. Now somebody can track where that picture was taken. So in future applications for college or jobs or that type of thing, things can haunt them, much less the stalkers and the not so scrupulous predators that are out there.
Can you block that? I guess it's an app you'd have to download in your phone. So first of all, you're saying, I want to use this app. But maybe parents need to find out what's on their kids' phones. Might be a surprise if you would take your child's smartphone. Of course, you got to be as smart as that phone. And go through and find what some of the apps are. And I know some parents say, well, I need to protect their privacy. Okay, but more often than not, you're paying for that cell phone, so I think it's your responsibility as well to make sure those kids are safe. Well, it may come down to, you know, the privacy or the safety of your child, and safety should always outweigh the privacy in that case.
And you know, honestly, it's not just kids. Adults use these applications too and don't realize. They think it's innocent enough. So adults need to be aware of their safety settings and that type of thing. And the providers of the cell phones, you know, the providers of the internet service, they would be glad to help you as well. But again, we have a lot of information available at the Crisis Connection as well.
You know, a lot of people think that with the internet, things are not kept or are not stored or are not viewed by other people. And we've talked about Facebook before, and how you got to really, you know, if you're using it for the right purpose, it's no big deal. It's a good thing. But when it gets used, or you say something that's derogatory or blasphemous even, it is tracked and it is watched. And once somebody gets a hold of it, believe me, they like to send it to everybody they know.
Yes. I mean, we used to worry about emails getting forwarded. Now with Facebook and those type of things, you just don't know. And caution is the word. Just be smart, not scared. Wonderful tools. We don't want to be scared. We just want to be smart on their use. And
maybe the best thing is if parents can communicate with their kids, because we've had superintendents in here, and we said, what's the most important thing parents can do with their kids and help them be better at school? And every one of them says, communicate.
Absolutely. There's 2 websites, Bill, now that you mention it. One's called giverespect.org, and it actually has prompting questions in formats that would be good tips for parents to follow. And there's another one, do you remember the commercials with this is your brain? It had an egg, this is your brain. Well, that organization still exists, and it's drugfree.org, and they have a whole section on tips on how parents can communicate with your kids. So, you know, there are tools out there to help you do that.
Now, and this isn't something that we had planned, but, you know, school is starting. Bullying becomes an issue in schools.
Absolutely.
Quickly, what are some things that parents should look for that either their child is the bully or that their child is being bullied?
And none of us ever want to admit that our child could be the bully,
But
indeed, you can be. We believe that bullying is always an issue of power and control, someone trying to have power over another person. Tips to look for is if your child's grades go really high because they're trying to overachieve to make sure that they're somehow able, or that they're good people, or that their grades go really low, or that all of a sudden they isolate themselves. Friends that they once had, now they're isolating themselves. Again, pay attention to their internet use, their Facebook use, that type of thing. Ask to see that. And parents say, well, I know my child's password and I look on Facebook. Well, they might have two accounts, or even email. They may have a Gmail or, some other type of thing. And help them solve the problem instead of trying to solve it for them, because many, many times somebody will come home and say, oh, Susie's bullying me. Well, then mom calls Susie's mom. It becomes a debate between the two moms instead of trying to help the child work it out with Susie. And then if she can't, then the adults become involved. And the other bad advice, I think, is to tell someone to ignore it. Easy enough to say, hard to do. Even in workplaces or in other organizations, as adults, we have people that, can potentially have power and control over us, and you can't just ignore them. And if you're on a bus with a person sitting beside them, if you're in a school classroom sitting beside them, it's pretty hard to just ignore. So again, we have all kinds of tips on how to address bullying, but you want to teach them to, first of all, have the courage to say, why are you doing this? To find out what the real reason is, and then to look in the mirror to see if you have to change something personally.
And tips, I guess you can call it crisis connection.
Oh, absolutely.
And say, can you do it anonymously?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so I could call anonymously and say, my daughter's acting differently, and I'm concerned about her, and you can give advice.
Absolutely. Okay. And you wouldn't get me. You will get a victim advocate, and it's totally confidential, absolutely. Now, I'll be happy to talk to anybody. If they ask for me, I'll be happy to talk to them. But yes, and we have a whole collection of books. We call it Battling Bullying with Books, and they're in the libraries, which are great resources on dealing with bullying. We have a whole section on our website. We have a Pinterest board on bullying. We have several boards. We have a technology safety board on Pinterest. So yeah, we have all kinds of tools for you.
Well, Joanne, thank you very much for coming in. We certainly appreciate it, and we appreciate you for watching WJTS in.form. We are local people watching local people.